there is some creativity that goes into play there that you have to be aware of, right? So, yeah.
What's the limit?
It's dependent on age, health, and amount that you're putting in there for the amount of death benefit, right? So some people were able to put $40,000 towards the base premium, and we'll put $60,000 in on what's called paid up insurance, which essentially just juices the cash value up and the internal rate of return. So it really depends on who you're working with, how much money you're putting into it, and the type of policy you're using, right? So if we use a policy that we're paying to 100, we can juice it, but the returns aren't going to be as good, right? If we use a 10 pay, it's going to have a base policy. It's going to have a really high internal rate of return without us having to juice it. Does that make sense? There's also things called a high early cash value policy, meaning, okay, I put in $120,000 year one, I'm already going to have access to $110,000. Only $10,000 of it went to the cost of insurance, but the long-term internal rate of return isn't as attractive as other policies. So you got to play around with the numbers a little bit, but it's worthwhile. Yeah.
And that tax deferred element, I'm obviously upon my death, is when it'll be the taxable event. Right?
Actually, no.
Okay.
If you do it properly, right? So say you have a loan out. We have that $1 million in cash value. Typically, you'd be leveraged up to a $1.5 million death benefit at that point, because death benefit's always going to be a little bit higher than the cash value. Say we borrowed against it, $500,000. You die 6 months from then. It would take that amount at a pro rata basis against the death benefit, and it would still pay to your beneficiaries tax-free. So it would basically just subtract against the death benefit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's still pretty attractive from that end as well.
Yeah.
We'd still like to see you live a little longer, though, Brian.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
yeah.
trust
yeah,
me, within the
yeah.
last I know.
Hey, don't try anything. So, yeah,
She's like,
yeah.
honey, maybe we should get one.
Yeah.
You mean he only spent
I could
$10,000
see.
and we get
I could see
$800,000?
I
I
talk
could.
about my own death, and people get weird. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, come on.
Yeah, I could see the
It will
wheels
happen
turning
one
over
day.
there.
It will happen. For as much as you don't want it to happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah. So, other questions?
Hi,
Go ahead.
Colin.
Yeah.
Are there any? Do you have any examples of clients that maybe you've seen use this really well, and maybe some of the impact it's had on them? I mean, I know I've got a buddy in Illinois that used this exact strategy to buy about 100 houses, like burying them all. Like that was his HELOC basically, right?
Yeah.
So like, any stories like that where you've seen people use this exceptionally well, real estate or not?
Yeah, so to backtrack a little bit, I was kind of like you. I worked for a company, or interned with them for 2 years before I got into it with the sister company that I'm with now. So in that time, that's where I really learned this strategy. It wasn't everything we did. We operated in the exact same sense that our firm does now. But with this specific individual, he was actually a professional athlete, and he was making, what was it? He was playing professional hockey still, and he was living over in Russia. And I should probably stop there on who it was, but anyways, he was making $750,000, $800,000 a year. He was overfunding one of these, right? And the idea was to build one of these up so that when he stops playing, he already had a little bit of rental properties, right? So he would generate $200,000 of income through his current rental properties. He would also have his own bank built up, right? Him and a couple of the other guys on his team at the time built these policies up, and then they hadn't retired yet, but they needed access to cash. And so they went to these specific policies, bought a couple. They went in on the properties together. They were single families. Wish it was multifamily with Brian, but you know.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But they went in on these single family properties together, and they fully funded the deal through using this strategy. So that would be, I guess, the success story. Again, I was shadowing a guy who he's been in the business 12 years now, still a mentor to this day, and he's with the sister company doing the same thing as we're doing, and it's something that works for a lot of people. It might not be for everybody, but it's something that really does supplement what you're doing in real estate. We don't want to take away from that, right? That's your bread and butter. That's what you guys, you do for a living. We want you to keep the majority of your assets there, but what if instead of having cash in the bank, let's get some money to work for us on a conservative rate of return to be able to eventually put over in this bucket of money in real estate, right? So, yeah.
Excellent. Other questions? Go. Oh, Derek.
Interest rate on the, I know the purpose of the concept is not necessarily the interest rate on the policy, but let's say that interest rates are rising, it's at 4.65, you get locked in on a policy. Is it adjustable for, say, the rates go up to 7%?
And you have a loan out?
Yeah.
So
So let's say I go and get a whole life policy today, and it's 4.65. You know, the rates climb to 7, 8, whatever they climb to. Will the rate on the policy be 4.65, or will it be?
Yeah,
will
so
it adjust?
So the way that they look at it is they look at the anniversary date for that specific month. They go look at what it is at that period of time that you go borrow the money. So it's not, it's 4.65 right now, I'm going to lock that in for the rest of this policy. It's adjusting as rates go up and down according to that Moody's corporate bond yield average. So, yeah. I wish it was locked in. You kidding me?
So no questions? No more questions?
Something to add in on that. So part of the deal of keeping it tax deferred is that it has to be adjustable. If it's a fixed rate, yes, you can go lock in 5% for the life of the policy, but at that point you lose the tax advantages of it, right?
Okay.
So that the fixed option is still it's an option. Don't get me wrong, but you lose some of the pop to it, I guess.
Any questions from our CPA back there in the room? No, you're good, Mike? All right, okay. Bonnie?
So at what point, and each will vary, but at what point in time throughout that 1 to 10 year span, are you actually, does it make sense to start borrowing from yourself? Is that like year 5?
I say anytime after 13 months, just to get the thing up and cooking. And like I said, it depends on what type of structure you're using. But I'd say after 13 months, you'd be fine. You just think of it as a grocery store, using this from the book that you're all pumped up about.
I need to read it again.
Yeah. But we use this. He's awesome, by the way. But think of it as a grocery store. You go buy groceries, or you own the grocery store, right? You're going to buy the groceries, because if you don't buy the groceries from yourself, you're going to mess up the books, right? We have to make sure that we are paying ourselves back, right? We don't want to go out the back and steal it. We can't go borrow from this and then just no longer pay ourselves back, or else the strategy is not going to work. So it is a loan, like at the bank. We're just paying ourselves back, and we have to make sure that we're doing so. But I would say anytime after 13 months, you should be fine. Yeah.
And is every year, are you putting the same amount in?
Yep.
Does that vary,
well,
do you vary that at all, or that's kind of locked in?
It depends on how you structure it. So do you want me to show you those 2 examples? I can.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Ben, do you?
It's a lot of numbers for
Yeah, throw
minority friends
throw a
out
couple
there.
of those
I'm
up
one
there.
of them too.
Throw those up there.
This is
And here Cole was worried about being able to talk for the whole time.
just get it up and cooking to make sure that it generates more cash that we have access to after that first anniversary date. It gives us way more access to cash on that end. And it's paid a dividend at that point. So it's starting to grow. Does that make sense?
All right, there you go.
All right, so let's there's so many pages in this.
Yeah, there's 55.
Yeah.
Yeah, just yell out to Ben whenever you need.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we're gonna scroll down like quite a few pages here. Yeah, you're probably better off with that. There we go. All right, perfect. Back up a little bit. A lot of numbers here, sorry. So this is the first one I talked about. This is for somebody who is looking for cash value early on, right? we're not as concerned about stronger rates of return later on. Maybe they're lacking a percentage point or a point and a half, right? But the idea is we're gonna overfund this so we have early access to cash, right? We're doing pretty well for ourselves. This is what we showed the individual I talked about. So we're putting $120,000 into this. At year one, we have access to $100,000 of that, right? So $20,000 of it's going to the cost of insurance. Does that make sense? We are paying into this, overfunding it for the first 6 years. That's what helps us avoid the MEC limits, it becoming taxable. We're putting in as much cash as we can to grow the cash value versus buying insurance, right? So as you can see here, year 14, 1.3 million that you have access to, you put in 1.2, right? And it really starts to take off after that. So that would be the first strategy. Let's go down to the second one. The second one is for a strategy that, hey, I don't need access to cash here in the first couple years. I want the stronger rates of return over a longer period of time to really grow wealth that way. Let's see what page we're on. Go down to like page 30 or something like that. Sorry. I should have screenshotted it. That would have been way easier.
Can't you read through this for us?
Yeah, let me get right on that. Keep going. Keep going.
Page 16 right now.
Yeah, keep going down. Keep going. Try like page 40. Oh, you're good. Yep. Up. A little bit more. Oh, there it was. Yep, this page right here. Scroll down just a little bit. Perfect. So this is a different structure. So this is saying we're going to pay $120,000 into this policy for 10 years, 1.2 million, right? But we don't get the early access to cash. The thing is if we'll look back up at the top in a second, this has a stronger internal rate of return over a longer period of time. Plus, we're limiting how much we put into this thing, right? So it limits us on what we're putting in. We have clarity on, okay, if life hits the fan after these 10 years, I'm not going to be holding the bag, right? We're still going to have this thing working for us. You see the cash values continuing to grow after year 10. You put in 1.2, you look at year 15, now you have access to 1.6 million. Does that make sense? So if we go back to the very top, sorry.
To the first one that looked like this? You mean?
Up all the way to the top. So scroll down to year 10.
You said all the way at the top.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, up, right. Right there, right? So this strategy on the left was the first one I showed you. You put in 120, you have access to 100 in year one, right? This one was you put in 120, you have access to 40 in year one. You can see where the internal rates of return start to vary and start to differ significantly, right? So at year 15, yeah, you had early access to cash, but now your cash is only growing at 1.39%. Versus we take the longer road here, year 15, our cash is growing at 3%. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you scroll down a little bit more, those values continue to grow. Keep going down. This is perfect. So you can see that in the first strategy, yes, you have high early access to cash value. You've put in 1.74 into it. Yes, you get early access to cash, but you only have access to 1.9 million, right? Whereas in our 10-pay option here, the limited pay, we put in $500,000 less, but we have access to roughly $200,000 more in year 20. Does that make sense? So yes, that's growing at 1.95, and year 20 we're up to 3.72. You can see at the bottom, year 30, those internal rates of return, they continue to grow year over year, right? These are going off of the assumed dividend rate that we ran this through Mass Mutual. They have historically over the last 15 years paid the highest dividend. This past year, 2022, they paid the highest dividend, which was 6%. Part of the dividend goes towards the cash, part of it goes towards the death benefit, right? So that's who we ran it through. It'll fluctuate on which carrier. I mean, I don't think they'll be the best forever, but you never know. Maybe they will be.
Yeah. I think Jake has a question.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on how the death, like when you're evaluating this for a client, how the death benefit relates? Because if I'm looking at this and I think I'm gonna live another 25 more years.
Yeah.
Like, if you think you're not going to live another 25 years, then you take the first option.
Right.
Yeah, so why is that with the death benefit there? I guess just the discrepancy between the two.
So the discrepancy between the two is the 10 pay is structured for cash value growth. So is the first one.
Yeah.
The 10 pay is meant for a high internal rate of return on cash.
Yeah.
This one is purely meant to give you early cash value access.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
We talk about the death benefit. We act like it's not a big player, but as you guys continue to grow your wealth, estate tax that's going to become a factor, right? Right now it's $12 million a person. If you're over $24 million in net worth, anything over that becomes taxable at 40% if we're not structured right. The thing is that when the Tax Cuts and Job Act sunsets here in 2026, it's going to drop to $6 million a person. So anything over $12 million on our net worth is now taxed at 40%. There's been rumors that they want to drop it to $3 million a person, right? Now everybody's starting to perk up a little bit. Last thing we want is to pass on assets to our kids that, one, aren't structured properly, but two, now anything over that limit is taxed at 40%, right? So yes, we're using it for the banking concept, but at some point, death benefit is probably going to become a piece of that as well. So we can use what is called an ILIT, and it's a trust that specifically owns insurance, meaning that the trust owns this. You're still the insured. They go to your estate. They look at all your real estate. They're not going to add in the death benefit into that total. So the death benefit can then go pay the taxes of your real estate that your kids are going to have to pay, right? Because if we'll use the limits right now. They're 24 million if you're a married couple, right? So you have 30 million worth of assets. That's 6 million that is going to be taxed at 40% if we're not structured right. Last thing we want to go do is have to go pay taxes on that. Does that make sense? So we put this in an ILIT if that's a problem. Now the trust owns it. We're no longer the owner. It doesn't count towards our estate. We have $4 million to go offset that tax, plus leave a little bit of legacy for our kids. Obviously, they're getting a decent chunk anyways, but I'd rather have my kids have the money than the government. I think most people would agree with that, but yeah.
Yep. Well,
sorry for the nerdiness here,
but no, we appreciate Cole and Jake, and I think there's a saying that you hear all the time: get in rooms with people much smarter than you. It's the reason why I hang around Cole and Jake and Mike T and Drew and a bunch of these guys in here, right? And even Brent. He's our banker. He's our banker.
I'm just staying quiet.
Yeah. I'm just messing with you, but anyway, but yeah, but we thank Cole.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Got cookies for him. He's gonna get cookies. And I know,
Thanks, sir.
I know Jana wanted to say something here at the end, but I do give some shout outs. We went to CMA Fest this year, and this guy sitting up here on the front row saved our bacon one night.
Nothing to do with that.
Yeah, you did. So we had some tickets for some people, and tickets weren't working for them to get in, and we knew Derek was working that night, and so we texted him, and boy, he came right down and helped us and got people in. So it was awesome. So shout out to that, and shout out to Cole. He put a post out on LinkedIn yesterday that was extremely kind of him, talking about the education that we give and all that good stuff, and yeah, it's got tremendous response, so I really appreciate that. What's that? Yeah, not quite, but yeah, and then yeah, and then this whole cost segregation thing is awesome. I know Terry did cost segregation on a property that I helped him buy. What's $1 million, right? So, but I'm just want to say, if this bill that's going through Congress actually passes and they hire like 80,000 more IRS, maybe you can get your tax refund back sooner than 2 years, right? So yeah, it took him like 2 years. He actually had to call his congressman to actually get his tax return.
Just got my 2020 tax return.
Yeah, just barely. Yeah, right. So isn't it great that if you're behind, they will come after you, but if you're, it's a different story, right? They can take as long as they want to pay you.
That's why they're
so.
bringing on all those new IRS.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's what
I
I'm
got a
saying.
question. Did you guys deliberately plan the best 2 hair models in Nashville? Or was that just like a whim thing?
Yeah. You mean the 3 best? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No. So, but we're gonna. Janet always, does a better job of ending this meeting than I do. So I'm gonna turn it over to Janet.
Well, before we do that, how about a round of applause for our speakers? We really do consider it a privilege to be able to provide this kind of education, and we're learning right along with you in many cases, because we have the privilege of being able to associate with people like these guys and girls that have a generous heart and are willing to share this knowledge. Is that not the coolest thing ever? Yeah. And the best part about that is that it's completely free to you. So we are really grateful for that opportunity to be able to do that, because we care about you and we care about your success. Whether you choose to use us or not, we encourage you to continue to learn and grow, and our hope is that we can all help this community be a better place for all of us. And as we say every single time, the reason why we are helping you do this is because we want to help increase your standard of living so that you can increase your standard of giving. It's not enough for you to just make money in our eyes. We want you to turn around and be the change that we want to see in the world. And unfortunately, that takes money. We can do it through our lives and setting good examples, but oftentimes the best way that we can help other people is by creating, growing, and maintaining generational wealth. So we encourage you to take that to heart, and also look for ways to serve in your community outside of just the money. We want you to be that person. That's the kind of people that we want to surround ourselves with. We feel like these guys represent that. They are involved. They have big hearts. The fact that they were willing to come and share what they do, absolutely free of charge, for your benefit, both you here in our studio audience and for you online, says a lot about that, and we're really grateful for that. So one final round for this.